Hello, friends, and welcome to the first episode of How Did I Get Here? Series where I go through and I talk about the last 5 years of my life being homeless and such. For some context, for 10 years in my 20s, I saved every penny I had, lived very frugal. I remember my apartment was like 200 square feet, right? It was so tiny. I only paid like $350 a month. And I just saved every penny I had, and I leased a restaurant. Unfortunately, I leased it right before COVID started. So when COVID happened, I was in Morgantown, West Virginia, which was a college town, and schools shut down. All the college students went home and just couldn't make it. Yeah, it is what it is. It happens. So I took some of my remaining money, bought a bunch of camping gear, and I decided I'm going to walk across the country. But I didn't want to just, jump on the American Discovery Trail. I wanted to kind of go my own way. So the first night I was homeless, I remember I gave the keys to my landlord. I walked out, started walking down the towpath in Morgantown. Basically, I just wanted to use the next day or two to kind of figure out how I'm going to do this exactly. First thing I noticed was I bought way too much gear. So I ditched a few things. One thing being the most memorable being a sleeping pad. I had one of those big inflatable sleeping pads that I bought. It was so bulky. I was just like, no, we're not even gonna try and take this with us. So I ditched that. And I found a little spot right off the towpath in the woods right next to a creek. And I set my hammock up and slept there for the night. First night, it wasn't too bad. Obviously, I've been camping a lot in my life. This wasn't like the first time I've ever been camping, but it was the first time I'd ever been like kind of urban stealth camping, so to speak. So, I didn't sleep perfectly, but I got a pretty good night's sleep. Woke up, and before I decided to start walking south, because, my plan was I didn't want to just walk west, I wanted to walk south. This was in August, and I was like, it's going to get cold in the winter. So start walking south now. By the time I get to Florida, it'll be nice and warm. Or by the time I get to Florida, it'll be, December, January, February, and I would have outrun the cold. But before that, I decided to head up to Cooper's Rock in Morgantown because it's one of my favorite spots. Hung out there for a few hours, and my second night homeless, I remember I slept under a bridge. I was coming back from Cooper's Rock and starting to get dark, and it was a bridge. And so I got under that bridge, and that was the first night I had ever slept on concrete. And it was the most uncomfortable thing I could imagine. I remember tossing and turning all night long. I could not get comfortable. Later on, concrete wasn't that bad. I had gotten used to it, but on this night, it was horrible. I remember I also I had one of those foldable stoves, and I had set that up, and I had cooked up some hot dogs. I do remember that. And after Cooper's Rock, I started heading southeast a little bit, which probably doesn't make sense from a geography standpoint, but I wanted to go to my hometown in Cumberland, Maryland, and see some friends before I fully set off on this trek. And so, yeah, headed southeast to Cumberland, Maryland. So I'd gotten to Cumberland, Maryland, and I probably hung out in Cumberland for about 2 weeks, just catching up with old friends, hanging out. Went swimming a few times because at this point, it's still August at this point, maybe early September, so it's still nice and warm. And we just hung out, and I just kind of got more used to stealth camping and such. After catching up with old friends and just hanging out, I decided, all right, it's time for the real journey to begin. I started heading south, and there were a few spots that I wanted to check out while I was heading south. I walked a few trails. One of the most memorable times that'll stick with me for the rest of my life was in Mount Savage, West Virginia. I had just Mount Savage is nothing but mountains, from what I remember. When I remember windmills everywhere. I must have walked 25 miles that day, and I was beat the heck up. It's probably the first day I really pushed myself. And so I get to this little convenience store. I remember I bought two sandwiches. I think they were cheeseburgers. Might have been pulled pork. I think one was pulled pork. And I got them, and I was like, it started to get dark. Nightfall is pretty much already there. It's just a little bit of light left. So I was like, before I eat this, I need to go find a place to set up camp. So I start walking down the road, and there's a little foresty area to the side. So I'm like, you know what? That'll work. That'll be good for the night. I get in there, and I set up my hammock and I eat my sandwiches. And I took the wrappers and I put them down right below me. I'll pick them up and take them when I leave the next day. And I slept really good that night. Slept like a baby. But I woke up in the morning to leaves like rustling. And I'm thinking, oh, somebody must have seen me because I'm only like 50 feet from the road, right? And my hammock is great. And so I stick my head up out of my hammock and I see this creature and I'm thinking, oh, it's a dog. And I look closer and I realize it's a bear cub just to the left of me. And then I look to the right and there's another bear cub licking a rock where the wrapper is. And I kind of look behind me and right there is Mama Bear. And I remember I turned around like this and we locked eyes and I just turned right back around and I just got in my little bear burrito hammock. It's just like, there ain't nothing I could do. Because my hammock had a bug net, which was zipped up. So, for me to get out, I would have had to quickly unzip it and jump out. And that would startle Mama Bear, and that would not be a good thing. Luckily, I have grown up with bears my entire life. So I was just like, just not going to make any sudden movements. I'm going to chill here, and we'll see what happens. Probably not even 30 seconds later, I hear him take off behind me, and I look back, and I see him scurrying away. And that is how I learned you never eat where you sleep. Obviously, I had heard that saying my entire life, but that was the best way to have it ingrained into my head. Like, thank goodness it was black bears, and we don't have grizzly bears up in West Virginia, or that could have been very bad. So after that bear adventure, I continued walking south. And I don't remember the exact order of things here. I remember I walked a few trails, hiking up in the mountains. I slept right off of a cliff face. I don't remember the trail name. I think it was up and around Dolly Sods. And there were these giant cliffs, and I had hiked for about 10 miles that day. And hiking in up mountains on hiking trails a lot different than walking roadways. 10 miles on a hiking trail is about as brutal as walking 30 miles on a highway. And I saw this cliff face, and I just thought to myself, I want to sleep on the edge of the world tonight. And so I kind of set my hammock up in a way that it was more of a tent, and I just slept on the rocks, and it was so beautiful. Woke up the next morning, snapped a few pictures, and then my phone died, which really sucks. Really, really sucks. because there was a lot more on that trail I would have liked to take some pictures of. So I got off that trail, and then I walked the roadway a little ways. Eventually, I got on the Greenbrier Trail, or I might have gone to Thurmond first. I don't remember. But anyway, we'll talk about Thurmond right now, actually, just for because that was a letdown. So, Thurmond, West Virginia is a ghost town, and I really wanted to see a ghost town. I thought that'd be really cool. So, I walked to Thurmond, West Virginia, and it is a complete tourist attraction. There's people everywhere, and there's like these train rides. Was there train rides? I think I might be confusing that with another place. But there are people everywhere. And it's, oh man, I really wanted like just a ghost town to experience, not a tourist trap. But I was like, you know what? I'll just hang out here for the day. And I'll sleep overnight in the ghost town. And that's what I did. I hung out there the entire day. And at night, I decided to sleep in the ghost town. I thought, you know what? No one's here now, so at least I get some kind of experience out of it. Probably around midnight, like a group of like 3 or 4 teenagers passed by. You know, they're just doing teenagers things, right? Being kids. So, you know, they weren't causing any problems or nothing. They were cool. Talked to them for a few minutes. And yeah, that was my experience at the ghost town. I went back to sleep. I went back to sleep and woke up and left. Yeah, that was kind of a little bit of a disappointment. You know, I wanted to go to a ghost town. I got there as a tourist attraction. Sleep in a ghost town, still people there. But I left. I remember I got on the railroad tracks and I walked the railroad tracks back to I don't even know where. I don't remember the town. Beckley maybe. And then I got on the Greenbrier Trail. Greenbrier Trail might have been before Thurmond. I can't really remember. And the Greenbrier Trail was, I believe, a 100-mile trail, but it was almost completely flat. And that was a really nice trail. You know, I got to sleep right off the trail because there was camping spots everywhere. And that was probably one of my more fun trail hikes. It was just relaxing. I could just walk, and it was nice. Then I came to the end of West Virginia, basically. So I remember right before crossing Virginia, I was walking down the highway. It wasn't even a highway, it was just a road. And guy pulled up next to me and he's like, "Hey, I got you something." And he gives me like 10 cans of like beef ravioli. Thank you, sir. Appreciate that. As I'm walking down the roadway and I see an old abandoned building, and you know, I still had plenty of daylight left. I was like, you know, I'm just gonna sit down for like 10 minutes, eat some of this ravioli, and yeah, then I'll continue on my way. That's what I did. Sat down, ate my ravioli. And then first police encounter on the entire trip. This is like, you know, 3 weeks in or so. It was the first time I actually had a police officer stop talk to me. Like, you can't be here. It's like, okay, sir, I'm sorry. I'll keep walking. He's like, do you have a place to go? And like, he was like genuinely concerned for me. He's like, I don't have a place I can put you. I don't have a place I can take you. It's like, it's okay, sir. Like, I've been doing this for a little bit. I know what I'm doing. He's like, all right. Just be safe. Don't cause any trouble. I'm like, okay. And so that was my adventures in West Virginia. You know, from there, I had climbed up a mountain and entered into Virginia. And Virginia is where a lot of fun happened. I almost died in Virginia, but we will get to that in the next video. So So while editing the video, I remembered another experience I had in West Virginia. I don't remember where it was, but so I'm walking down the road. I can't even think where it was, and it starts to rain. No big deal. I find a bridge. I get under the bridge. Now this is you shouldn't even call it a bridge. It's more of an overpass. I got down there and I set up. I couldn't set my hammock up, but I just laid on the ground. I remember I cooked up some ramen noodles. I go to sleep and I wake up and the entire under there is completely flooded. I remember my little fold out stove was almost completely submerged. Luckily, I hadn't gotten wet. I was not at the point where the water had reached me yet. But I woke up and it's flooded. It's pouring down rain. And the water, I stayed down there for like 30 minutes. And it seemed like every minute the water was just rising and rising and rising. And eventually I was going to get flooded out completely to the point I wouldn't have been able to stand under there. And so I made the call. I just walk in the rain, I guess. And that's what I did. I packed all my stuff up, started walking in the rain. I got to a little general store, walked in there. It's just like, I'm like soaking wet. As soon as I walk in, I turn to the cashier, like, I'm sorry, I've been walking in the rain. I'm soaking wet. That is no problem. And I bought a Coca-Cola and like a small little breakfast sandwich. I walk up, put them down. She's like, what's the story? And it's like, oh, I was under an overpass. I got flooded out. And I had to walk in the rain. He's just like, and so she walked over. She grabbed 2 more sandwiches, and she just said, "It's on the house. Feel free to sit right outside here, and because there was like an awning, she's like, feel free to sit out there until the rain stops. Eat your food. Just relax." And so I did that. Sat out there on a bench, and there was an overhang, so I was out of the rain. I ate my food. Probably stayed there for about 45 minutes. Cleared up, started walking down the road again. And I'm still soaking wet. And I end up getting to a bridge. I was like, you know what? I'm soaking wet. Let's just camp out here tonight. It is still daylight, but I just didn't feel like walking soaking wet. Get under the bridge, and from being rained on, my sleeping bag and everything was wet. So what I did was, and it started to get windy. I remember it started to be windy because what I did was I took my sleeping bag and I basically used it as a windshield. I like put it up on the wall. I don't remember how I attached it to the wall. Because, there was, it might have been metal. It might have been like metal triangle supports under that bridge, and I kind of tied it up to the supports. I don't remember, honestly. But I remember I tied it up to that wall. And that did 2 things. It helped it to air dry. It also blocked out the wind. And I also made a fire with my little fold out stove. Cooked up some noodles for dinner that night. And I remember I just slept without my sleeping bag. It's still pretty warm. It was still pretty warm. This was in September, probably. Had to have been in September. So, it wasn't cold. But I slept. I woke up. And by the time I woke up, I was pretty dry. Just because, I had a fire going. And I just sleep throughout the night. Packed up and started going down. So, yeah. That was a fun story I just remembered while editing. I'm sure there's going to be a lot of stories I miss when I'm making this video that I might, need to return to in the future. But that is what it is. Like, subscribe, all that jazz. If you want to support me, links are in the description. Peace out, everybody.